Well, you can get him Frankenstein. You can get him Frankenstein. You can save that girl of mine. You can get him Frankenstein. Oh, you can get him Frankenstein. Well, here comes a baby walking down the street. She looks so pretty and she looks so neat. A wolfman come from behind a tree. A wolfman howling.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the RePlay podcast. Today is part 2 of our interview with Eddie Adlum, publisher, founder of RePlay magazine. The initial interview was so entertaining and just kept going on for over 2 hours that we broke it up into 2 episodes. And episode 2 promises to be just as fascinating. We really appreciate you tuning in. If you have any comments, drop them below in the chat. And enjoy episode 2 with Eddie Adlum. You've been in every phase, the ups and downs of the industry. And shortly after you started RePlay, Nolan, Bushnell, and his friends introduced a video game, and you were right there. Matter of fact, you coined the name video game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And well, how do you recall those years where it was just crazy town and everybody was buying everything?
That's a great question. I'll abridge it by saying something. I made it into the very first Hall of Fame crowd that the AAMA and so on put up a couple of shows ago. And of course, one of them was Nolan. And afterwards, Joey Kamenkow, who was also inducted into the Hall of Fame, hosted everybody to dinner that night at the convention across the street at whatever that Italian restaurant is, right across from the Las Vegas Convention Center. And a whole bunch of us had our own room, and we're all eating and stuff. And I'm getting old, and I started to get tired, you know. We were all shooting the shit back and forth, stories, war stories, everything. And I says, Nolan sat, like you are now. Nolan sat at the other side of the table from me. I says, Bushy, I got to tell you something before I go. I always wanted to do this, and I have a chance now. He says, what? I said, I want to thank you for making me and my family financially secure for the rest of our lives. And he said something crazy. He says, I love you. Yeah, I think he had a few. And I left. And I'm happy I did it because, flashback, I'm at Cashbox. The phone rings. It's a guy named Art Daddis from Jersey. He used to build pool tables as United Billiards. An old friend of mine. Artie had great stories. Artie says, Ed, and I can imitate him, come from the South. Ed, I just talked to Lou Walcher. He was a thing in the industry in San Francisco, a Bally distributor. I just talked to Lou. He says there's a game out there that has a television set in it, and the people love it, making money. So I forget the name of it, ping pong or some darn thing. Oh, I says, I'll have to look it up. Next thing that happens is I get an ad in that Cashbox, just a quarter-page ad, Pong. I said, the hell is that? And it wasn't Atari, it was something else, what they called themselves, I forget. Well, anyway, I did some research, as you're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out what it was. And I found out what Atari was. And I found out there was this good Mormon boy named Nolan Bushnell who ran the joint, and a guy named Al Alcorn who programmed this thing, similar to what was a primitive video game at the time that a guy by the name of Ralph Baer had been fooling with in a lab. At any rate, out came Pong. The thing was dedicated to only do that one thing, and that was it, just play Pong. But Nolan and Alcorn struck genius because the game, as you know, was a 2-player, incredibly competitive, easy to understand, and got harder to play as you went along, okay? So Pong opened the door. And I was writing, because everybody, about 25 companies, by the way, jumped the game, knocked it off. That was where the phrase, right. About 25. Everybody and his brother was making a Pong, with different names, of course. And I was writing about these things on the typewriter, of course, and then in the magazine. And I said to myself one day, you know, this business about TV games, television games, we got to come up with something better than that. Like jukebox works. Some people don't like the name, but that's what the world calls music box. Pinball machines, some don't like that. We used to call them pin games. Now we call them pinballs. And I says, oh, Billboard calls the movie jukeboxes, which all died horrible death. They call the movie jukeboxes audio video machines. Video, that sounds nice. I said, video game. Type away, it stuck. That's how that happened. And people sometimes say, oh, did you get any money for that? I says, no. I says, neither did the guy that invented the word boat get any money for that. It's language. What are you kidding? It's a breathing thing, language. So as it went along, everybody, as you know, and his brother, including Rockola, got into the video game business. And of course, everybody who was not in the video game business wanted to get into it too, because you see, this street is paved with gold. And indeed it was. Indeed it was. From about, I don't know, they made money during the mid-'70s. And then in 1978 came the real thunderclap, and that was Space Invaders out of Japan. And this was just out of its mind, what was going on. There were stores in Japan. Stan Jarocki told me this. He says they were vegetable stores, throwing out the vegetables, moving in machines, instant arcade. He says it was nothing but money. He says, Eddie, he said the greatest thing. He says, over in Japan, Space Invaders is better than steamed rice. So here we go. And the rest of that is pleasant history. The greats, the Namco games, Gallagher, and the Pac-Man, my God, Mrs. Pac-Man, better than the Pac-Man. 200,000 machines sold. Space Invaders itself, they say, sold with knockoffs over 300,000 machines. That's an insane amount of machinery and an insane amount of money collected on location that was brought to banks, turned into zeros, lots of zeros. The guys went nuts. But alas, nothing is forever. And it closed rather abruptly. I think it was Chat McMurdy of the McMurdy brothers in San Francisco and Los Angeles who said, Eddie, on June 5th, 1982, at about 5 p.m, the video game fell off the cliff. That's what he said.
I had just started into business, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, just one day it was there, next day it was not.
Yeah, and then we went around wringing our hands saying, why did this happen? Could we have prevented it? And all of this. And you know what? It happens, What home video was blamed, remember? What we called home video. Do you know who invented home video?
Nintendo.
Nolan Bushnell.
Oh, give me a break. Oh,
he did. He invented Corn Up, and he invented home with the alligator clips you put on the back of your TV set. You could play
that's right.
Oh, yeah. Jeannie Lipkin was a sales manager up at Atari. Nolan was, of course, Nolan. Joe Keenan worked for him. Some of the Ray, guy named Williams. And we all went up there. All the distributors, early on in Atari's history. They were the new Seaberg, only they were making games. And AMOA, then MOA, saw all of this going on and says, we got to put an A in front of our name for amusement. And they did, and it was just like, we went up there. Nolan had bought the Abigail Folger mansion up in the Portola Valley in San Francisco. The place had, I don't know, 85 rooms, something insane. It was crazy. It was an upstairs, downstairs thing. It had a part of the house you couldn't see unless you went through a secret door. And Nolan bought this joint. And all the distributors went up there. And I remember so clearly, George Opperman was their photographer at Atari. And Bushy got all the distributors together for a photograph. And we shot the picture from the top of a roof, some tennis building or something down there. And I remember it was down. And George Opperman is at the camera, and he says, Eddie, do you know these people? And Randy, I knew almost every one of them. Yeah. There was at least 50 distributors down there, almost every one of them. And if I looked at that picture today, maybe I'd catch half, and I'd say, what's his name again? Like I can't even remember the founder of MOA. At any rate, I would say, John Brady, John, what? Move a little bit to your right. You're hidden. Okay, everybody, please make sure you can see the camera because the camera's looking to see you. So, right? They were all down there. And that picture still exists on the back of one of the RePlay ads. That Atari used to always be on the back cover of RePlay.
Mm.
So, video, it was everything, And I was one of the ones who stupidly thought that it wouldn't stay, and that it would stay forever. Anyway, bottom line is, RePlay has a place. The magazine business in general, like the newspaper business, isn't doing so good. Okay, there's exceptions. Vanity Fair, of course, the New York Times, which is not failing, but they're struggling. Okay, and that is because the internet, and that is because you can turn the machine on and you can see the important stuff that's going on. In our blog, we have one of these newsletters. There's other newsletters. There's that guy from Cambria, California. I figured he's got some sort of a thing running, and that's fine. That's good. But you know what? Magazine, you can pick it up, you can put it down anytime you want. You can read anything, or you can read everything. You can read nothing. You can look at the ads. You can see what's going on the chart. You can look in the blue pages in the back to see if anybody's selling used equipment that you might want. You can do this, you can do that. But you know what you end up doing? You know more after you looked at a replay every month than you did before you picked it up. And that's what we do, and we do it straight. And that's what we're proud of in this 50th anniversary that we're celebrating as you and I speak to each other. And I'll shut up now. And if you believe that, I'll tell you another fairy tale.
No, I mean, I keep it right here,
I love that cover too. Yeah,
right
that's
here,
my
right
friend.
here on my desk. You always need to find something. Well, what's the future for RePlay? How are we going to do this 10, 20, 30 years from now?
Well, the people who are doing it now will continue to do it when I'm dead, I hope. And I'm 86, and that hospital just reminded me of something. Death isn't that some thing in the future. It's a reality, and it happens, and it will happen to me. And all I do really right now is I do the business parts, okay? The financial aspect, I do that. Taxes, licenses, crap, this, that, the paying the bills, paying the payroll. We have some fun bills like printer bills. We have some fun bills like the post office bill. They love to raise. Do you know that we only raised the subscription price $5 in the 50 years we're in business?
Really?
$5. And you want to know why I did it?
Why?
Because Playmeter was selling their book at 60. And I said, my book is better, so I charged 65. That's an admission, but that's a true story. But today, $65 in today's money is what? $15 in those money? No, so at any rate, yeah. And the same thing with the ads. Barry says, what do you think? I says, I think we're going to keep the price. What do you think? I think we're going to keep the price. What do you think? I think we're going to keep the price. And you want to know why? I keep the door open with this money, with this price. Doors open. If the day comes when the post office, the printer, and all of that crowd, let's not forget the paper merchant, okay? These guys. When they raise their prices to the point where we have to raise the ad price, and I hope that people will say, well, it's about time they did it. It makes sense. I hope. Anyway, again, I don't want to run an ad on RePlay. I just want to answer your question.
It's the RePlay podcast. Go ahead.
Hey, it's the truth. Yeah, no, I didn't see it. I keep seeing the word RePlay written up on the wall here.
Oh, yeah, it's our little.
Oh, I like Terry's. I like when Terry and I have a love-hate relationship. I mean, who doesn't with that guy, right? Let's be honest. He's just a piece of work. He's just a piece of work. When we used to go to the row conventions years ago, all right, they used to. First, the big thing was the new phonograph, right? See, I use the word phonograph. Today's jukebox is not a phonograph. Doesn't play records. But back then, when they made phonographs, they used to have a big deal every year to see the new one. Hey, clap, clap, clap. Joel Friedman, Jerry Gordon, all those guys. They get out there and dress like women and walk around and have a good time, right? Yeah. That's a way to do it. But Terry also was like me. He was only interested in the jukebox. He wasn't interested in the vending part that Row had. Row made, I don't know if you know it, or you might remember, full line vending at one time. Everything, soda machines, milk machines, this, that, and the other thing. They made all that. So that would come after the jukebox part of the presentation. And Terry and I would go to the bar. Every time we would go, him and me, no other buddies around, and we talk and we do this, we do that. I remember once he borrowed a stamp, I bugged him about it, but I knew his background from Capitol Records. He wasn't too verbose about that, by the way. Terry was with the promotion department of Capitol Records, and he worked with a guy named Bill Valenziano there. And Bill Valenziano, when I worked for Cashbox, was a friend of mine, and I got in a deal with him and lost some serious money.
Mm.
And Terry loved to do this. So how's Bill Valenziano? You see him lately? I says, put your hand down and don't talk about that guy, okay? But it wasn't Valenziano's fault. He fell on some hard times. Record business, that's a fickle trade. You talk about fickle. I left Cashbox when we were doing about 18 to 20 full pages of ads a weekly issue, okay? And I was the salesman out here in California, and a guy named Marty was in New York. And it was fine. It was good money. The boss was doing fine. And we had a house in Palm Springs, the whole shot. And then he and I had our difference. And then came video games. And Randy, inside of those few years, the record business fell in half, money-wise, of what it had made before video. And I know that from Columbia Records. A good friend of mine named Sheila Schlander, who worked there, says, Eddie, you know how much money we made last year since those things came out? What? She says, half. They own, Epic Records, all in Columbia. Come on, big deal. They used to press records up in Santa Maria, California. The whole shot. She told me something I wasn't aware of. They were really on their knees, the record business. And what did that do to Cashbox and Billboard and Record World? First of all, Record World quit right away. They saw the handwriting on the wall. Cashbox struggled. Billboard is still struggling. Finally, after many years, George Albert closed Cashbox, and there was Billboard left. Billboard is nowhere near what it was. But it's still there. And I don't know how they make the money, but they do. They wanted to buy RePlay, by the way. They're in the video boom. Yeah, their president, because Billboard had a lot of magazines, including Amusement Business, if you remember that one. That was one of our competitors. They won. Billboard's president and the publisher of Amusement Business, Howie Lander, his name was, the two of them took me and my wife out to lunch here in Hollywood. I says, what's up? And the guy says, we'd like to buy your magazine. And I went, oh, is that right? And my wife, Tippy, said, I don't want to sell it. I love what I do for a living. And, to my wife, I wasn't going to argue, but I have to tell you something. I really thought about it. I thought, how cool would this be? I'm only in business a few years. And Billboard, of all people, the people I used to compete against with Cashbox, wants to buy my magazine. And no, she said no. They never tried an independent shot at it. I think they probably did their homework. And I think when they finally came up with it, whatever decision it was, the video game was on the slide down,
Mm-hmm.
So there it was. But we survived. We survived. Redemption now, Cranes, thanks to guys like you all over the place. I remember when cranes were illegal. I do. Back in Jersey.
Yeah. Back in the day.
And everybody went on the rotary machine for the Ronson cigarette lighter in the middle, which was probably glued down, but we didn't care. Everybody went with the Ronson lighter, and the claw would get around it, squeeze the shit out of it, and then pop. More fun. I know. All right, I'm gonna play again. In went the dime, da 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 da, all the way over to the Ronson cigarette lighter. Yeah, Asbury Park before Humpy. What's his name? Come on, the boss. Oh, Bruce Springsteen.
Oh yeah, okay, sorry.
Before Bruce hung a guitar around his neck, we were playing in the arcades in Asbury Park and Ocean Grove. Yeah. I love the arcades, Andy. Randy, I love the smell. I love the smell of the wooden cabinets, the stuff that was only brought out for the summer and then locked up for the winter, getting moldy and smellier. And out they'd come, the Chicago coin games, the Midway rifle games, the Seaberg gun, bang, yeah, the bear gun. A lot of people made nothing but money with those things. 25 cents, get into booths. Sam Stearns, make a record booth. And you know what we'd record? Be four of us in one of his booths, 25 cents. every filthy word in the English lexicon. We would be screaming on top of each other. And then the speaker would play it for the whole arcade. And we'd be on the floor laughing. Yeah, more fun. Anyway, I could go on.
Are you ever thought about writing a book? You ever?
Guys have asked, but I said, excuse me, I says, I'm in the publishing business. There's no money in it. And there isn't. It would be a labor of love. It would be a labor of love.
Well, it strikes me that we haven't even scratched the surface here. You just have so many great stories, and I'd read it.
You know who had the stories was Jerry Monday. Did you ever hear of him?
Oh, I met Jerry Monday. Sure, worked with
Jerry,
Joel.
Yeah, Jerry could tell stories. Alan Weisberg, who runs Apple photo booths now.
Oh, Alan, no.
Alan can tell stories, and he should be on stage. He should be on stage because his delivery is pristine, and he can dentalize it too, which makes it even funnier. Let me tell you about the first time I met Myron Sugarman. He can do that. Now picture this, and he'll paint this picture of him and Shuggy, you know, which was really Myron's father's name. You know, there's another thing. I knew the greats. I knew Shuggy. I knew Bill O'Donnell, Pally. The government wouldn't give him a license to open up Park Place, the gambling casino in Jersey City, in Atlantic City. Yeah, I called him once. I says, this is after he got out of Valley. I says, Bill, Louis Boasberg from New Orleans wrote this glorious tribute to you, and it's very embarrassing. Did you see it? He says, yeah, he mailed me a copy. I says, can I run it? He says, go ahead if you want. I says, okay. And he says, I says, how are you doing? He says, I'm okay. I says, I didn't mean to bother you. He says, Eddie, I got nothing to do. Says the most important man in the coin machine business. Eddie, I got nothing to do. Bill, you know, but then he went, the wife went crazy. His son and I used to fence. Young Billy O'Donnell, who ran the pinball. He was mean. But he ended up good. He ended up a good boy. So anyway, I can carry on, but I'll tell you, I knew them then. I know some now. There was a time when I went to a show that I couldn't walk 6 feet without somebody grabbing me. Today, if I go to the spring show that your guys and the MOA and the AMA put on, I can walk from the front of the hall to the back wall. Nobody stops me.
I don't believe that.
No, it's true.
I would stop you.
Well, you would, yeah, I know. But there are very, very few. And
well,
that's okay. You know? It's okay. But at one time, it was just crazy, you know. And fame. I was a big fish in a small pond. And then the small pond became a big pond. And we ended up on the cover of Time with the Pac-Man guy. And we were just, I'm in the video game business. It used to be, I'm in the jukebox business. Right? Like, yeah. You see any of those guys? What guys? Those guys. When people ask me that question, I'll refer them to a program that 60 Minutes of CBS had on the air. I think Harry Reasoner was the spokesman. And it was about the jukebox business in New York City. And if you go into a bar, you'll find the jukebox, and it's always working. But the payphone may not be. And why is it always working? Because the mob owns the jukebox. And I got so hot that I grabbed Mickey Greenman, who knows everybody. I says, that's bullshit. He says, write me a letter to the editor, and I'll give it to my friend Mike Wallace. You'll do that? He says, yes. So we did, and I wrote the letter, and he gave it to Mike, and it was on the air. I was literally playing a Chicago coin pinball in my basement in New York, right? A game called Twinkie. Great game. They made great pins. Sorry, Gary, but they did. And I'm flipping away, and I look up at the screen, and I see my name. I says, Tippy. She says, what? Come here. What? I says, I'm on television. Look, there's my name. And I caught half the letter. And then Reasoner got back on. Oh, no, Mike Wallace got back on. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you, Ed, for sending in this letter. It was partially redacted. I saw them do that. They used to do that, cover up some stuff. I didn't write anything wrong. I said, in a nutshell, I don't know an industry out there that hasn't had an interference from the people you're talking about. Not one, not one. But I will tell you something. The industry that I'm in, I love this industry, is full of hardworking guys, many of whom came out of Europe with the idea, I want to be in my own business. I says, they walk around. Some of them are fat, some of them are skinny. They walk around with heavy coin bags or no coin bags. They're jukebox and game operators, and they're my people. And the next day, I got a call from one of them who said, he says, I like what you wrote. He says, thank you. End of sermon on that one. Yeah. But yeah, I've been asked. You've been asked. We've all been asked. Remember when it was a thing that people thought, you know? Today, nobody thinks that anymore. But we used to call it the black eye, remember?
That was the rap for sure. Yeah, my father ran for public office one time, and that's what brought him down. They said, you know, he's one of them.
That's right. That's
he
right.
runs jukeboxes.
That's right.
I remember that. I was very young.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That's a was.
Yeah.
We're having fun today, you and me.
Yeah. Well, this has been an absolute honor. And I just really appreciate you taking the time and supporting this thing that Key and I came up with. It's been so much fun talking to people like you, but this is the Super Bowl for me. So thank you for giving me a couple hours of your time.
Randy, you earned it. It's not like a favor. You earned it. I've watched some of the ones you've done, and you know, I love it because I know the guys. I know Gary. Yeah. I know Terry. Yeah. Who was your first one?
George McAuliffe.
George, of course. Yeah, George. He was smart cookie. George McAuliffe, smart cookie. He wrote for me for many years. Now with
35 years he wrote for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's yeah. I knew his brother Terry, who died young. Yeah, he was one of the first arcade operators here I go.
I called George because I've known George forever, and he's a dear friend. I said, George, I need you to be number one here. First of all, because you're kind of your own little legend in the business. Second of all, I don't know what I'm doing, and I need a test here. And so we actually had to record his twice. I said, I got to call you back, and we got to do it all over again. He goes, okay.
He's a good boy, really. God love him. We've had so many good people in this business. So many sharp, smart, scheming, dreaming doers. You know, and you know, one of the guys I'm sure you don't know him. Mickey Greenman, his name was. Mickey worked for me at the RePlay for a few minutes. He had so many great things he would say. And I always remember something about business that he helped me with. I says, Mickey, Nat Hockman, who used to work for Rolitzer, he just came out with a movie jukebox. I says, don't these people learn? How many are we going to go through? Panoram, Scopatone, Cinebox, my favorite title, you ready? Filmotech Discotech. Yes, that was the name of the machine. Came out of Philadelphia. Joel Friedman beating that dead horse to death.
The video jukebox, right?
The video jukebox that Roe had. None of them work. Nobody wants to play them. A.D. Palmer from Rolitzer said it best. Took the cigar out of his mouth and he says, Eddie, you don't go into a bar to watch television. You go in the bar to promote a dame and get drunk. Okay? So I said, okay, A.D. You know, A.D. was a smart cookie too. And here's Nat Hockman with this thing. Why? And Mickey Greenman says, because they see the gold at the end of the rainbow and they don't count the steps between now and then. He says, those are the guys that come up with outrageous ideas, even though they've been proven wrong. And they get hurt. And Nat didn't make it in the movie jukebox business. So I look at that and I say, nice try. But, you know, if it's going to be a TV in a bar, it's going to be a sports game. Preferably, it's going to be nothing. You know, if it was up to me, I'd put my foot through it. But, you know, I'm an old-time coin on that. And take a look at that. The dart game. Take a look at that. The pinballs, they're coming back, you know, really coming back, as you know. Now we got Jersey Jack in there and American Pinball, and I hope for them and others. And thank you, Gary. Thank you. You never gave up.
Never gave up.
And
he needed a job. That's his famous line. I needed a job.
Yeah, he loves to talk. And all he likes, you know what he likes to do? Likes to talk, and he likes to make pinball machines. That's what he likes to do. And he does that. And it's just amazing. He's not in it for the money. I don't think he ever was. And he honors his father. I remember Sam, the first time I met Sam was on the street in Philadelphia, Broad Street, between all those distributors. That was Coin Machine Row back then. And he was walking up down. I said, Sam, hey, I says, what you doing? He says, I'm going to the ATE show. That was the English show. I'm looking for some cleaning fluid. You what? I'm talking to an icon of the coin machine business. Yeah, he says, I always get food on myself on an airplane. I said, well, good luck. I don't know. I don't live here. You know, I'll see you when I see you. Yeah. God bless Sam Stern. He was at Ira. C.A. Robinson Company was the big distributor for many years here in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Owned by a guy named Al Bettelman, and sales managed by his famous son, Ira Bettelman. Everybody knows Ira, knew Ira, yeah. And I'm down there, they had an open house. It was 5,000 operators. They were just selling video games left and right, new and used. Here, buy that. Up in the air, over guys' heads. I could see it was a cocktail machine coming over. Hold on, watch out, get out of there. Boom, put it down here, here's your money, take it, throw it on the truck. And here's Sam Stern in the middle of all of that. And I go over, I says, hi, Sam, it's Eddie. Oh, yeah, what's up? I don't know, this and that. He says, I don't work for Cashbox anymore. Oh, what's the matter? I said, I got my own. What? Magazine? I says, yeah. You got one? I gave him one of the first ones. And he says, roll the drums. Yeah, I can run an ad in here. Thank you, Sam. I'll be in touch. And Randy, before I run you into the wall with all of this talk, I'll be in touch. If you want to call it quits here, it's okay.
Well, I knew we would have at least a couple of episodes, and we may end up making 3 out of this one. Time flies, but it's been wonderful. This has been a highlight for me from a career-wise, and we haven't been great friends, but I've known of you, and you've always been so polite and nice, and it's just a real joy to sit here and talk to you for a couple hours.
Thank you for saying all those things, and ditto.
And thank you to Ingrid for helping us out with the technology, and you can thank Key for some of these bullets, including Crazy Leslie.
God love him.
So they're
I
good
made
people.
him famous on the blog. Yeah.
All right. Appreciate you, Eddie. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, Randy.
Take care.
Game over.